We've all at some point gotten that sinking feeling of discomfort when seeing someone you're romantically attracted to do something embarrassing. Po body's nerfed, and we've all tripped on the sidewalk or awkwardly chased after a football as it bounces unpredictably, or had our butt crack peek out from our pants when bending over. Sometimes those last two things happen simultaneously, and there's nothing wrong with you when this happens. It's part of the unforeseeable and random future that's endlessly careening toward us and yet never arrives. None of us have full control over these events that are typically caused by external factors. That's just life, baby! However, over the last couple of years, stuff like this has gone from a slight embarrassment that is forgotten in a matter of minutes to something the internet has convinced millions of people that you should be so ashamed of and now must crawl into a filthy hole and live a life in exile because of how cringe you are, you filthy golem. We call everything an ick, from acting like an actual sociopath to doing silly little childish stuff like finding a really good stick in the woods. Men, literal dogs. There's an entire account dedicated to cataloging every ick that's ever been posted on TikTok, aptly named Guy with the List, where he's up to 701 icks. Albeit this most recent one is psychopathic behavior and a valid and disgusting crime against humanity and the Italian culinary arts. The internet can be a wonderful place that brings people together where you can participate in collective action and efficiently communicate ideas quickly across great distances. Sometimes these ideas and actions are ill-intentioned and lack even a shred of empathy and exist only as a way to dunk on strangers in order to boost one's own self-image. Things on this list include number 8, don't fall over. Number 49, don't have earlobes. Number 180, don't sleep. 237, don't have back pain. 325, don't get into a car accident. 633, don't drive a car at all, which I guess would prevent you from getting in a car accident. 671, don't build a snowman. And number 1, the one that started it all, don't smile or be happy. Other things deemed icks: breathing, sitting down, getting sick, and being alive. I don't know why people are so obsessed with creating detailed lists of all the things they can't stand about the people they're supposedly attracted to. To be fair, it is equally petty to create a list of all the icks people have come up with, but at least this guy is using it to comment on people's ridiculous demands, so there's a point. Icks have taken over the internet, and it's gotten so bad that I can't tell who's being ironic and self-aware and who is saying stone-faced that they genuinely get the ick when they see someone taste test ice cream with those disposable mini spoons. The next time I'm at Baskin-Robbins, I'll jump the counter and grab it by the fistful, I guess. In the past, we might have referred to these simply as turnoffs and red flags, or worst case, deal breakers. The problem with the word ick is that it seems to lack a clear definition of intensity for any minor infraction. Everything can and is an ick if you're petty enough. It truly feels like people use the word as an excuse to not interact with whoever they just aren't into or when their partner is annoying them, but it turns into a weird, performative attempt at publicly shaming people for being people. It's okay to say you're not into someone or something they do. You don't need to make up a bunch of minor and extremely specific reasons in an attempt to deflect. I get that it's usually a joke. A lot of icks are basically just calling attention to the fact that physical comedy is and will always be funny. So many of these examples are people doing something in a slightly goofy or unnatural way, like this guy trying to beat the garage door before it closes and failing. That little hunched half jog he does is funnier because of how tall he is as he tries to avoid banging his head.
It's summer, I got my hat on backwards, and it's time to fucking party.
Or when you have to squat in a wide stance to use one of those scenic telescopes at the top of skyscrapers because they're designed for children. Other times people think that being born is an ick.
Red flag that I seen a guy is having a mom, and even worse, having a sister.
Damn, you want me to be an orphan? Well, unfortunately, I have both a mom and a sister.
Oh, wow. Do you have any aunts?
3.
Wow. Is your grandma still alive?
One of them's gone. Yeah, the other one's still here.
All right.
I used that clip in a previous video, which is what led me to making this video, and I just can't fathom what she means. Does she have a dead mother kink? Is she gonna kill someone's mom? How does she think reproduction works? Is this a riddle? Is she stupid? Other examples are completely made up things that no grown adult does who's not suffering from a traumatic brain injury.
New ick alert. If you have a crush, you're trying to get rid of the feels. Just imagine him tying his shoe. And he's like, you put the bunny through the loop and it goes in the hole. Stop that!
That or this lady is attracted to kindergartners and she's got bigger issues than creating a bunch of made-up turnoffs. There are several definitions of what an ick is. I've seen people say it's specifically the cringe things a person you just started dating does that makes you feel secondhand embarrassment. Other times, it's hypothetical things you have yet to see someone do. I think the majority of the time people are joking about the icks of their partner or spouse, and it's just some casual ribbing, which is usually a sign of a healthy relationship. You have to be able to laugh at yourself and be able to take a joke from your partner now and again. But the word has gone through the usual life cycle of most internet trends and memes, where it was a fun and relatively harmless thing that people caught wind of and had a good time with, but eventually people started abusing by labeling everything as such, and now it's lost all meaning. Like saying a word over and over again until it's just sounds and you can no longer identify its form or definition. Apple, 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 apple. Like that. Apple. Apple. It's so weird. The problem with internet slang like this is that it gets perverted by people who don't understand why it was funny or intriguing in the first place and have no self-control over refraining from using it for everything. Take the phrase, "that's what she said."
That's what she said.
For a brief moment in time, it was funny. Or, "my wife." This is the first time I'm saying it out loud in probably years. It's still funny. But over a long enough period of time, words and phrases go from being a cultural cornerstone that signals you're aware of current trends to being out of date. The repeated use of old catchphrases or slang shows that you're no longer in touch with what's relevant, and the time it takes for this to happen varies from years to like a couple of days in the case of the word cheugy. Remember that? Probably not. It's the predictability that sucks the humor out of a once comedic phrase. On top of that, the moment normies catch wind of a bit is the moment it dies a slow and agonizing death by becoming basic. It's like that kid in middle school who had no sense of comedic timing and thought that repetition was the only thing that made something funny, and then destroyed the humor inherent with a word or act and would torture people by doing that thing where they'd put their finger an inch from your face and say, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you," over and over again. It's that. That's what we've done to the word ick. It's worn out its welcome, and now a good thing is ruined. The other problem with the word ick is that they could be anything from a singular or random or voluntary or involuntary action. That's not a great quality for a word to have. If we can't collectively decide what the definition is, anyone can ascribe their own meaning, and words need to mean something, damn it. Otherwise, we're no better than apes or dolphins that commit sexual violence on anything with a pulse regardless of species. One of the fundamental aspects of effective communication is precise language, which, despite records indicating the first written language existed over 5,000 years ago, we're still struggling with, especially iPad kids. Words need to have clear and commonly understood meanings to facilitate an effective exchange of ideas, which is why so many people still don't know how to correctly use the word ironic. When a word like ick is used to describe a broad spectrum of actions or behaviors without a clear boundary, people get confused and misunderstand their fellow man. It's why you can't have a real meaningful conversation with a parrot. Yeah, sure, they're saying words, but do they understand what they mean when they tell you to shut up?
Shut your mouth!
Semantic precision ensures that both the speaker and the listener have a shared understanding of the terms used, which is severely lacking in the case of calling pushing a pole door an ick when it's really just kind of a funny mishap. This also presupposes that none of these people have ever accidentally pushed a door labeled pole or asked an employee for help, leaving them standing in the middle of a JCPenney wondering if they've been sixth sensed when Sebastian doesn't hear them. You have the memory of a goldfish if you think this has never happened to you or gone to get a haircut yourself. It's not like barbers just do this to people to be dicks. It'd be super weird if you declined to wear the cape. No, thanks, I'll just burn these clothes when I get home. This selective memory leads to an inflated sense of self and unrealistic expectations of personal behavior. This is influenced by confirmation bias, the tendency to remember successes over failures or to recall moments when we were composed rather than awkward, favoring information that confirms our existing beliefs or perceptions. Not wearing a cape at the barber is a weird and pointless refusal to participate in a common and harmless social norm. Having set expectations for behavior in certain scenarios helps facilitate respectful social interactions and avoid you looking like an eccentric nutcase who's just trolling your barber on purpose because you conflate humor with annoying the shit out of everyone around you. On the flip side, this malleability of a word like ick does have some benefits. The ambiguity of ick invites creativity and lets people explore new linguistic uses, invent playful derivatives, and engage in wordplay. It's this ambiguity that champions creative language and storytelling by creating vibrant and engaging communication. The vague nature of ick allows for a broad range of personal expressions that can be tailored to individual experiences and emotions like disdain, discomfort, or aversion in a way that's personally meaningful. When language is applied like this, it can easily adapt to new contexts and meanings, making it incredibly useful in an environment that values quick, efficient communication that's dependent on the individual or group that's using it. However, this also means that people take it upon themselves to create words and phrases that we already have words for, like reverse icks, chivalry, gallantry, kindness, courtesy. These are all reverse icks. So do we really need to make up a new phrase for it by slapping an inverse prefix onto the front? It's just kind of linguistically confusing, as it's a negative word construction to convey a positive concept. By framing positive actions as reverse icks, there's an unintended emphasis on the negative, which influences how those actions are viewed. Instead of being recognized purely as positive, it's positioned as an antidote to something negative, like saying cap for lie or no cap for truth. That one always confused the shit out of me. It's redundant and silly, and the content revolving around reverse icks come across as melancholy and twee to describe genuinely listening as a reverse ick. That should be a given in any relationship. Or holding hands? You couldn't set the bar any lower. At the same time, I get that it can add an extra emphasis on something like saying, you can't not order endless breadsticks at Olive Garden. They're just so damn good. But then there are questionable reverse icks, like getting jealous when another man talks to your girlfriend. Gestures like getting jealous when someone else talks to a partner might be framed as protective or passionate, but in my experience, it's usually a sign of an unhealthy possessiveness or lack of trust. Not only that, it normalizes problematic behavior. Even in the best case, it frames things like genuinely listening to a partner as exceptional enough to be noteworthy when it should be inherent. Healthy relationships should naturally include mutual respect, active listening, and support without being considered special or extraordinary. And if these acts are conditional and performed with some expectation of reciprocation or as a means to an end, it undermines the sincerity of the gesture and can create transactional dynamics in a relationship. It's very possible I'm overthinking this, but that's kind of my job. But the whole thing lacks empathy and understanding for the experiences of others. Recognizing that everyone has awkward or forgetful moments creates empathy and reduces harsh judgments of others. Understanding that other people aren't NPCs in a video game and have actual thoughts, desires, and motivations different from your own.
Wow, if I've been picking a heart, picking a love you, huh?
Can help in recognizing that what might be an ick for one person could be a total non-issue for another, and attraction and pet peeves aren't universal. It's depressing to think that there are people picking apart every little detail and obsessing over the idea of finding some perfect ideal partner. That's called a fantasy, and it's why filthy porno exists. We're all disgusting animals, and if you think about it for long enough, everything we do is gross and awkward. We all poop and piss and sneeze and get ingrown hairs and have earwax and pick our noses and scratch our butts and sweat and shed dead skin and fart. But through that process, we're basically a whole new person every 7 years, and farts are always funny. If you don't think so, you're a soulless lunatic. It's just really shallow, insecure, and intolerant to think you're somehow different, and it comes across that what you really want is a partner frozen in carbonite, preserved perfectly for all eternity, or a fully articulating sex doll with internal heating element that can be programmed to erotically whisper your name and attentively listen to you as you rattle off all the boring parts of your day.
What do you feel like doing this week? I've got no plans for the next few evenings, apart from spending as much time as possible with you, of course.
If anything, having a big list of every minor blunder someone does is an ick in and of itself. This isn't to say that all icks are wrong or incorrect. Being rude to waiters and not saying please and thank you are two of my personal icks that are objectively valid, but to call them icks trivializes how shitty that behavior is. This is not the same as the viral accounts of frivolous minor icks people proudly proclaim in short, consumable, and shareable clips, and I'd go so far as to say that the people who see waking up as an ick probably don't tip or put their shopping cart back in its stall.
My biggest icks with men is when they wake up and they're confused. Like, what? Like, that's womanly.
Real men wake up like Dracula from his coffin. If you are offended by having to witness a man drink a frappuccino,
there is nothing more icky than watching a guy walk out of Starbucks with a frappuccino in his hand, like sipping on his green straw. Oh my gosh. Order a black Americano like a man.
I'm terrified to imagine what you think about flight attendants or food service workers. Also, calling out men for drinking anything other than black coffee or similarly masculine drinks just feels like a way for people to get away with calling somebody that likes a pina colada gay without actually having to say it. It's sexist and upholds gender norms in the dumbest way possible. Cocktail for girl, beer for boy. What flavors an individual can stand has nothing to do with gender or sexuality or whether you are a good or decent person. To my earlier point about the interchangeability of what constitutes an ick, men seem to think they're legitimate, obnoxious behaviors. That or guys don't really understand what an ick is.
I texted all my guy friends and asked them what are some things girls do that give you the ick. My friend Caleb said, ask me if I'm upset more than once. This is actually a big one I've noticed in guys. Because if their girlfriend is constantly like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? I'm guilty of that. They'll be like, I will tell you if I'm mad at you. I'm not mad at you. Next response I got was try too hard for anything, but also don't try for anything. And I think, and reading in between the lines here, what is meant by that is guys don't want to date someone who makes the guy their whole entire life and is constantly just trying so hard to the point to where it's obsessive, especially if you are not dating the guy yet. I gave a response from my cousin and he said, when girls talk about icks.
For men, there tends to be social stigmas against discussing nuanced personal preferences openly, like the icks they get. That, or they're afraid they'll be labeled a misogynist if they do, especially on public platforms where the comment section typically devolve into a toxic hate fest where people don't understand the concept of context. This brings up traditional gender roles and the expectations of dating and relationships where men are often expected to be more discerning or selective because, you know, they might get murdered by a strange man who thinks it's okay to wear shorts in a blizzard, and thus are more willing to post about personal preferences and red flags in a potential partner. This is just more of an observation than a generalization, I want to be clear, but there seems to be a huge disparity between who's generating all of this ick content.
Okay, ladies, you want to know why you're struggling to find a guy? All right? Because this is something I just got sent. Someone just sent me, said, can I send you the icks from my girls group chat? I said, yeah, go for it. This is just one page of 5. Insane.
I guarantee there isn't a single guy who has 5 pages of icks saved in their phone. There are, unfortunately, guys who keep a list of all their past sexual partners, so, you know, we'll call it a draw. Having standards is fine and everyone should have some, but Jesus, how is one able to even keep this all in their head without hyperanalyzing everything their partner does every minute of every day? You have to walk around cross-referencing everything they say and do against your little list like some kind of savant relationship accountant. It just sounds like what these people really want is an employee to micromanage and bully, not a romantic partner to share a life with. Like this guy says, he gets the ick when a girl doesn't like PDA.
Another ick that I have that I actually recently found out is a woman that doesn't give PDA or doesn't do PDA. I get it, like you had an ex, your ex didn't like it, so therefore you kind of became distanced from that. But I ain't your ex ain't me, so why are you comparing us? Which actually brings on to another ick. Why the are you talking about your ex so much? I don't give a damn about him.
I assume he doesn't mean aggressively making out in public like one of those gross high school couples do in the hall between classes. He just wants someone to show a little affection. And this, again, brings up gender norms and the expectations of men and women, where deep down men want to be loved on, but society constantly stigmatizes affection from men by subliminally and overtly telling them that it's something only acceptable for women to want or participate in. Like I said earlier, not all icks are a sign that a person is childish or irrational or suffering from some form of projection or deflection. This kind of behavior is objectively unhinged. I don't know what he's consuming or whether or not that's how you're supposed to open that container, but I hate how aggressive it is and how casual he looks while he smashes through it like a serial killer. In other cases, calling certain things an ick is genuinely some of the funniest shit on the internet, like this. Or this. And sometimes icks have a legitimate function and need to be used to bully and shame people so they stop wearing loafers without socks. You're vile. Or everything happening here.
What up, guys? Zachary with Western Guy. You, Michelle, I'm here with
Aaron.
And I got a question for you. Give me your biggest ick in a frat guy.
Honestly, probably when they bought for apples.
When they bob for apples? What the fuck?
Not the bobbing for apples, that's just good old-fashioned carny fun, but doing street-style interviews and engulfing the entire microphone in your pie hole that it deep fries the audio all to shit.
What up, guys? Zachary with Western Guy. You, Michelle, I'm here with
Aaron.
Lav mics go here. There's nothing wrong with having preferences about who you want to date, but come on. This is mostly normal shit people do or don't have control over. It's weird to film strangers doing things in a public place where they're not assuming some peeping Tom is gonna call them a walking ick because of how they eat or what they order. It's bizarre that people feel it's acceptable to belittle others for how they swim as if there's a different sexier way without coming across like you'd just rather they drown. Gen Z and fellow millennials, be very careful with this trend because it's getting dangerously close to being the boomer equivalent of I hate my wife minions humor that's infected all of Facebook. Maybe that'll be my next video. That's the video. Thanks so much for sticking around, watching till the end. If you did, that means you're special. Be sure to like and share and subscribe. Share it with a friend. Share it with your Meemaw. Share it with a boomer who has no idea what an ick is. Go follow me on Instagram. I post updates about the channel and stuff that's going on and memes. Lots of memes. Once again, thanks so much for all the comments and encouragement. It genuinely means the world to me. So until next time, vanish. Time for a thumbnail. What's my thumbnail face gonna be?